talk about what is next for the alternative investment industry. A lot of people talking about alts going mainstream. Even before you get down to the individual retail level, you're
hmm
starting to see the advisors, multifamily offices, even just regular RIAs that are serving more of a mass affluent, starting to get interested in it, starting to have clients that have exposure to that asset class. Certainly, the degree of tolerance for inefficiencies a lot lower when you get into those markets. But where's the market
Yeah.
going in terms of democratization of alternatives?
Yeah, it's a topic we have discussions about internally and externally seemingly every week. There is a lack of standardization, I think, partially on both sides. Both sides are to blame, meaning I don't know that LPs amongst themselves can agree on what a standard format or depth level of reporting from an alternative fund manager would be. Everyone sort of defines standard themselves. They need to get the data where they need it to go, and that's for them standard. On the flip side, GPs aren't necessarily being regulated the same way public funds are and aren't, mandated to provide any level of depth outside of, what they feel comfortable with. And so um, our view is that a central platform that kind of creates an exchange of information that sort of reduces friction associated with standardization is an immediate answer, right? And Canoe does that, right? We provide LPs and allocators data in their standard so that they can action it and use it. And we get all the data from the GPs that they're reporting, not just the ending balance, not just the net cash flow. And so that access to more data at your fingertips as a Canoe client is really, really valuable. On the democratization piece, I think you're starting to see. I mentioned earlier that this idea that the private markets don't operate the same way public markets do. It's very clear. It's very analog. I do think we at Canoe think that at some point in the future that's going to change. There will be a convergence. And I think you're starting to see that in two ways right now. Obviously, access. And so platforms like Case, like iCapital, like Moonfair, and others are making it easier for individuals, high net worth folks managing capital at large scales with limited alts exposure to access funds that they weren't accessing in the past. The other is vehicle structure. And so you're seeing a lot of evergreen funds come to market. There's a massive wave designed to make the investment into alts closer to the experience of public markets investing, right? More of like a hedge fund style investment. And if we talk to GPs every day, most of the big GPs have either launched evergreen fund vehicles or are in the process of doing so. Even talk to secondaries funds and fund of funds, and they're doing the same. So trying to capture that wave, GPs are absolutely focused on that through platforms and through vehicle structures. So what does that mean? It means that you're ultimately going to have, if you talk to KKR, it took them 30 years to get to 2,000 LPs. They estimate that they'll get to 10,000 LPs in the next 5 years. And so there is going to be an influx of investors that brings natural burdens associated with scale and operational efficiencies. And so we're sort of right in the sweet spot. I think we're going to see um, a lot more of this trend as GPs look to chase fees and chase more investors. And that's sort of, this is the pocket that is untapped for them. And I think they're going to do what they can to go capture this part of this wave.
Now, I want to ask something really quick, Mark. You guys will all recall in August this year, the current administration put forth an executive order. The title of that executive order was Democratization of Access to Alternative Assets. It really is opening the door for wider adoption. And to piggyback on what Mike said, that adoption would be through target date funds, managed accounts, collective investment trust. While great in theory, the adoption may take some time, and there's a reason for years that alternative assets were available only to institutional and accredited investors. They're incredibly
Yeah.
complex and they require
Yeah.
a deep understanding of the industry and market. And Mike alluded to something, the secondaries market. 2024 saw the highest volume of transactions, some say as high as $140 billion, and 2025 is going to be an even bigger banner year. The telltale signs for growth are all there, improved infrastructure. And I also know it's because I'm getting more invites to conferences around the world for alternative assets. And I think the last thing that's going to help growth is there's a tremendous amount of dry powder. There's hundreds of billions of dollars sitting on the sideline, and GPs, LPs, they don't want to sit there. And so it has to be deployed somehow. And I think that the time has come for that to happen.
It is a really interesting time for the industry, for private markets in general, but also, being fueled by the technology providers that do make it possible.